Man, that felt good. A huge 29-9 win over Ohio, and we're here to recap it. It's the Locked On Syracuse podcast, and it starts right now.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, it is the Locked On Syracuse podcast here on this Monday morning, Labor Day morning. Tim, Leonard, Tyler Aki, happy to be with you. We sound chipper this morning. I don't know if you can tell, and it's because of the win, Ty. That was awesome. What a great week.
They've
one
matched
for
last
Syracuse.
season already. We're through week one, and we've already matched last season. No, that was a fantastic win. I effing love Sean Tucker. I mean, there's going to be a lot of praise doled out today on this show. I can already tell.
Absolutely. And if you are new to the podcast, first off, thanks for joining us. And we're happy to have you every single weekday throughout the football season. We're also on YouTube. That's a new addition to the Locked On Syracuse podcast. You can go over to our YouTube page, subscribe there, follow us on Twitter as well. We'll be live tweeting the games. We got some great interaction from the fans. Just good to have the full live feel of the first game back. I know you were doing a lot of the tweeting, Ty, but some good back and forth with the fans there at our Twitter page at @LO_Syracuse.
Oh, yeah.
It was good.
I mean, it's good to have football back, right? I mean, we talked about it, even though the expectations aren't high. Maybe some people's expectations changed after this opening win. We can dive into that maybe a little bit later on, but it's just good to have football back, man. I mean, there were so many good games this weekend. The Syracuse game was fantastic. If you're a Syracuse fan, maybe not as much if you're an Ohio fan, because, right. I mean, that was one of the 5 worst coach games I think I've ever seen on the Ohio side. There's so many little details that, I mean, first of all, what was it? Their first offensive drive, they send out a kicker to take a 50-yard field goal on 4th and 3, his first ever collegiate kick. I can count on my 2 hands how many kickers can make a 50-yard kick in college football. Ohio's kicker is not one of them, okay? 4th and 3 in plus territory. What are you doing? It was awful. I mean, that was a coach that did not play to win. I mean, frankly, that's what I saw. And it was his first game, I know, but I mean, Dino Babers, talk about someone who was in a different class in that game. And I'm not saying Dino was great, but he was in a different class than the other sideline.
Yeah, when it was 12-6 at the half, it was one of those games where you were like, dang, why aren't we up more? And I'm glad that it ended up being 29-9, which I guess is the first time a Syracuse football game has ever ended with that score. Shout out to
a little
Matt
scoregami.
Yeah, he tweeted that out. So 29-9.
I just think it was 12-6 at the half, but it felt like it was, 23-3?
Yeah, something like that.
It felt like Syracuse was in the driver's seat because of the dumb things that happened by Ohio. The safety. I mean, that's just terrible coaching. You call a fair catch on that every day of the week, all right? I don't know what was going on with that Ohio team. And again, I'm glad Syracuse beat up on them, but you've got a completely different team coming up this next week because there was no discipline and there was, frankly, not a lot of brain power moving on that other sideline.
So it sounds like maybe you are more Ohio kind of gave us that one, or do you take...
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, there's a lot of things you need to credit Syracuse with in that game. The run game was freaking fantastic, okay? Sean Tucker was absolutely phenomenal. I thought Tommy DeVito did his job well. I don't think he was a lights-out quarterback, but I think he did what he was asked to. He game managed through that game. We can talk about DeVito later on. And then, I mean, the biggest revelation, Duce Chestnut. I mean,
awesome.
We've heard the rumblings all throughout the off season and the early portions of the spring season as well. He was everything and more that he was asked to be in that game. He was the best defensive player. I mean, he was the best player on the field probably in that entire game. And I'm going to include Sean Tucker in that. I think the job that Duce Chestnut did and just being a true freshman, he was the best player in that game. He was so good in his role.
No doubt. He won Freshman of the Week for 24/7 Sports. Pro Football Focus. His PFF grade was up near 89, which was by far the highest on the team. So we'll get into more of Deuce because he was tremendous in this game. You bring up how Tommy DeVito kind of just did his job. And I think that's a brilliant way of putting it because when you look at his final numbers, now he did rush the ball pretty well. He had 49 rushing yards and a TD, but he was 11 for 17, 92 passing yards. Syracuse threw for 100 yards in the game total, which was way less than Ohio threw for. And partially it's game flow and all that when you get ahead and how they were running the ball. I have no real problems with how they game planned. It just feels like DeVito kind of just did what he needed to do in this game to win. And they didn't need a lot from him in this game to win. Now the question becomes going forward, Rutgers, obviously Albany won't be the case, but Liberty's on the horizon. ACC play will be coming. They're going to need more from him. And then it becomes, can he do those things and still limit the mistakes, still do his job while also throwing deep? I mean, as long as pass in this game was 21 yards, completion.
Right. Average depth of target was 9.5 yards. It's not very long. And I went back and I looked through all of his throws, and maybe we can do a little more analysis on this tomorrow because it's going to take a while to break down the entirety of his game. But he had 2 chances to go deep, and he missed both guys who were open. So there's still some meat to be chewed off the bone here. And I think you brought it up perfectly. This was enough to beat Ohio. He game managed his way through this one. But against the Rutgers, against the ACC teams, against Liberty, he's going to have to make some throws. And he made a couple throws here and there. He had the nice play to Quealy, but they played a very safe game with Tommy DeVito. A lot of quick stuff, a lot of short passes, some screens. They did not challenge Tommy DeVito, I don't think, in this game. And when they did, he missed most of his opportunities. So there's still a lot to be desired with Tommy DeVito. Now, I will say on the flip side, though, he was a super effective runner. He had the touchdown early. I thought he made a number of really good decisions on run-pass options, on read options, all that stuff. And there's the whole Garrett Shrader conversation, which we might get into a little bit, but there was no need to put in Garrett Shrader. I'm fine with them putting him in at the end because that was garbage time. But if Tommy's running that well, and you as a head coach know that Garrett Shrader's arm is not nearly what Tommy's is, there was zero reason to put Garrett Shrader into that football game.
Yeah, I'm all for sticking with the quarterback you have unless you need a momentum change. Like even last night, I'm sure you watched Florida State, Notre Dame. Mackenzie Milton comes in because the Florida State starting quarterback, Travis, lost his helmet. He comes in for a play, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, we've got something here. We've got some newfound momentum with Mackenzie Milton. You have to stick with him at that point. If Tommy DeVito hasn't given you a reason to take him out of the football game, there's no reason to just throw in Garrett Shrader. It's a risk at that point that you don't need to take on. It's like the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They were winning with DeVito, so why put in Shrader and sort of maybe risk the possibility of losing the momentum that you have? Now, you could make the argument they should have been even higher up or in control more if maybe you had a better quarterback in the game. But it seems like Dino went in with the game plan, and who knows how much he really thought he was actually going to play Shrader in this game. He's even saying next week, we'll see Shrader against Rutgers. I'm still a little torn on how much of that is gamesmanship, how much of it isn't. And I do think he thinks Schrader's a solid player, but he understands that they didn't need a ton out of DeVito in this game, and DeVito was the best guy for this game because he knew the offense better, and he knew the run-pass options and all that a little bit better probably at this stage of the season.
I think he also, Dino being him, I think Dino knew going into this game, I'm going to go to Shrader if I need to. He never needed to in this game. And I think the same thing applies against Rutgers this upcoming week. They're not going to go to Garrett Shrader unless they need to go to Garrett Shrader. And I think that's the perfect way to game plan it. All right. And I kind of talked about this when we were doing the prop shop of when will we see Garrett Shrader over under 2.5 drives. And my whole rationale was he's going to want to instill confidence in Tommy DeVito. This team will win more football games if Tommy DeVito is the effective quarterback that he can be. And I think that proved itself out. There was no reason to just involuntarily go to Garrett Shrader in that game. I think Dino played that perfectly, absolutely perfectly with how he managed his 2 quarterbacks.
All right, we're going to get into Sean Tucker's career high game in just a little bit. But guys, did you know that 85% of people who play daily fantasy sports lose? Is really that surprising? The game is rigged against you. You're playing against thousands of other lineups, not to mention experts who have more tools, more time. There's guys that are studying this like crazy. I know this because anytime I do the golf daily fantasy stuff, I know I'm just probably throwing money away against some of these bots and everything. Well, there's a new way to avoid that fear right now, and it is StatHero. Introducing StatHero. It's the first ever daily fantasy sportsbook that puts the player in control and winning within reach. Here's how it works. StatHero shows you their lineups and dares you to beat them. It's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. You name your stakes, winner take all. You have the advantage. StatHero is showing you their lineups ahead of time. No one else does that. I've really enjoyed doing StatHero a lot more than the other DFS sites out there because you actually do win, and it feels good for a change to win. You don't feel like a loser every time you're doing this. You're in total control. StatHero is DFS the way it was meant to be, one-on-one. Play StatHero now and change the odds. Just go to stathero.com/lockedon, sign up for free, and right now you get 3 times back on your first play. They're giving you a 300% match. That's unheard of. So go to stathero.com/lockedon. Again, that is stathero.com/lockedon. All right, so Sean Tucker rushes for 181 yards, career high. I think it was 7.2 yards per carry. I mean, he was really good in this game. And there were some questions of, all right, how is the running back distribution going to play out? He gets 25 carries. Cooper Lutz gets 5. Cooper Lutz did have a touchdown, but you get Abdul Adams for 3 basically in garbage time. Jarv Howard had 1 carry. So it's pretty clear right now that Sean Tucker's the bell cow, and I think there's no doubt he deserves to be that guy.
He was fantastic in this game, but you bring up some of those complimentary touches that were given out there. They came at some head-scratching times, I feel like. And even though Syracuse ran the ball, what would they run the ball? 40-something times in this game? I really do think it should have been more, which is crazy to say, but they could have fed the run game all game long, and it would have been there. Sean Tucker was breaking off big runs, and I know he got pulled out of the game sometimes because he had just burst off a big 40-something yard run, and he needs to come off for a play or two. But anytime this team is inside the red zone, Sean Tucker needs to be the running back. And I look at those touches. I believe Cooper Lutz and Jarv Howard, all of their touches, or maybe there was 1 or 2 that weren't, but almost all of their touches came inside the red zone. Those touches need to go to Sean Tucker. And I think that's part of why this team didn't put up 40-something points in this game, is because of the personnel that was at times on the field in important situations in the running game. But Sean Tucker was great, and it's tough to complain with the 180 yards that he had on the ground. An A-plus post-game tweet as well. We cannot be lost on that. Right. I mean, the guy is fantastic, and name, image, likeness, I think, is going to treat him very fondly.
Exactly. Nothing makes me happier. Well, the only thing that made me happier than Sean Tucker's performance on the field was seeing his tweet afterwards. I knew it was coming.
We missed
I was just so eager for it, and it delivered. I mean, it was even better than I anticipated. For anyone that doesn't follow Sean Tucker on Twitter, I mean, get that guy a follow right now. He's the best Twitter in the ACC. Best running back in the ACC, maybe. We'll see, but definitely best Twitter in the ACC so far for him. He now has played 10 games at Syracuse, and 4 of the 10 times he's passed the century mark, which is pretty amazing because I guess he's gone against a fairly tough schedule when you consider it was all ACC last year. He didn't even play until really they got into the thick of it last year as well. His offensive line has been mostly bad, which I guess we can talk about. I mean, how much of this performance made you think, okay, is this offensive line like a lot better than last year? And how much of it was just Ohio being Ohio and them not having to worry too much about offensive line play being dominant?
I think it was a little bit of both, kind of like I've said earlier. And it sounds like a cop-out, but that Ohio team, they could not get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and they couldn't really penetrate in the running game as well. I do want to point out one hidden star in this game, in the running game. That's Max Mang. He was good. Absolute stud in there for Chris Elmore. And Chris Elmore missing this game. He's going to miss, it looks like, a couple more games with an injury. But Max Mang was fantastic fantastic in this game blocking. And he's earned plenty more reps, and we'll see. Maybe he can add a little bit more in the passing game as well. But he cleared a lot of lanes. I thought the offensive line obviously played better. Aaron Service looks healthier. I don't think he was fantastic, but he looks healthier. And then on top of that, Matthew Bergeron, I thought, had a very nice game as well at that left tackle spot. I believe he was the highest rated blocker in the passing game for Syracuse per Pro Football Focus. But the offensive line looked healthier, which obviously means they look better. Now I want to see it against a defensive line that actually has dudes that are all in the 300-pound range and has speed to get into the backfield, because we knew going into this game, this was an Ohio team that was not going to live behind the line of scrimmage.
Right. Allowed just one sack in this game, and it was honestly, Dino actually praised Tommy for the sack. And after the play, talked about it in the postgame, where it was a red zone type of play where DeVito actually just sort of like lined up in the middle so that Andre Smith could get a chip shot right in the center of the field, and just sort of didn't have any options on the play. And he almost got back to the line of scrimmage. So the one sack was really not that much of a negative sack.
Yeah, I went back and looked at it too. I mean, he missed a couple guys. He locked in on his first read. And I believe Aaron Murray, who was doing the game, said this too. You could see he locked in on his first read in Taj Harris. Now, the pocket did collapse rather quickly, but there were a couple guys that were open in the end zone that he missed. I think it was Queeley and Courtney Jackson wide open in the end zone.
Yeah, so I guess, I don't know why this is the case, but Dino said post-game that it was a designated route where he was only looking at Taj. Like, why they do that, that's maybe beyond me, but he was like, yeah, we told him to look at Taj, and that was the play, was the designated route. And then once that wasn't open, he did a good job. And I guess when he jogged off the field, Dino went up to him and was like, that was great sack. Basically,
sack.
is what he said to him. Yeah. But I mean, look, overall, I think his pocket presence is poised. It wasn't tested a ton.
He looked way better, yeah.
But it was better. Yeah. You have to give him some credit.
And maybe it's because it was early in the season too, but you could tell he was doing his best to get away from sacks and not just turtle up. Like, that's what we said about him last year. He would turtle up on sacks in the year before. And maybe it's because he got hit so much. And maybe it's because he hasn't been hit in quite some time now that he almost forgets what it's like to be knocked around as much as he was the past 2 seasons. So he's still sort of fresh out there. But I don't know. I thought he looked way better in the pocket. He made things happen with his legs on undesigned runs. And just the offense as a whole flowed a lot better. But I still think there was a little bit left to be desired because there were missed throws. I think the running game could have done even more. And I will say this, okay? The Syracuse team, there's a lot of things you can rag on them offensively over the last couple of seasons. And Sterling Gilbert in particular, I know a lot of people wanted to see more of the tight end in this game, and there was no tight end to be seen.
It's just not going to happen
throughout this entirety. First of all, just stop rooting for it because it isn't going to happen. But if there's one thing that you can give Sterling Gilbert credit for, he has stabilized the hell out of this run game. And he's done that at all of his different stops. I believe at Texas, he had 2 1,000-yard runners. He's done it at McNeese State when he was a head coach. He has stabilized this running game. And Sean Tucker, it's nice when you've got a talented back who can spearhead it, even if it is a shaky offensive line. But he has gotten this run game to a place that it hasn't been in quite some time at Syracuse. And it's going to start to set up the passing game, hopefully. And now it's going to be on Tommy to hit some of these deep shots that are set up by Sean Tucker and the boys up front.
Absolutely. And that's something we talked about. We did the bold prediction podcast, which shout out to you. We're going to get to Duce Chestnut in a second, but that one's looking good. Your Duce Chestnut lead the ACC in interceptions prediction. But I talked about, and it was kind of just wishful thinking, how I thought this is going to be a run-dominant team this year, and they're going to be the best rushing attack in the Dino era, and maybe we will see Sean Tucker be the first running back since 2012 at Syracuse to get to 1,000 yards. If he stays healthy, I think he's certainly on track after the 181 yards he picked up the other day. But it feels like they did some reflecting this offseason, and they realized, all right, Tommy is what he is at this point. Maybe he's not what we dreamed he was going to be at this point. But we've got this great young running back. We've got a healthier offensive line. Maybe it'll make Tommy better if we can become more versatile offensively. And that was all the talk in camp, is how versatile the playbook is this year and how they've gotten more runs. And you can see it. I mean, Tommy's running more, and it looks like they have shifted the playbook a little bit.
Yeah, and I wonder how many pages they took out of the Shrader playbook and said, you know what? we can use this with Tommy because his legs look great. I think the threat of Tucker, always fantastic as well. There's just a lot of balance in this offense, I think. Almost too much balance with the offense. And I would have liked to still see a few more running plays. And that sounds ludicrous to say about a team that I think ran twice as much as it threw. DeVito only threw 18 passes, and he also had the sack taken. So there were 19 designed pass plays in this game. And it feels like they still should have ran the ball a few more times because of the way that the game flow was going and the success that you were having at the running game. If they're not stopping you, there's no reason to stop running the football. It felt like every time Sean Tucker touched the ball, he was going to pick up at least 5 yards. And that's the way the whole thing played out. And you got to tip your hat to Sean. He was fantastic. And hopefully this is the start of a really long string of good games for him.
All right, we're going to get into Duce Chestnut in a little bit and talk some defense. But did you guys know Built Bar has 9 delicious flavors, plus the occasional limited time flavors? When you talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their faves. Tyler and I love the peanut butter brownie one. That is our favorite. You also got coconut almond, cherry, raspberry, mint brownie. All these flavors are delicious. And you can even try your first box and get a mix box today where you get 2 of each of the 9 flavors. And the best part about Built Bar, they taste great, but they are also good for you as well. They're healthy, amazingly. Most of the flavors have 17 grams protein, only 130 calories, only 4 grams sugar, and only 4 grams net carbs. A couple of the other flavors have even some better protein and calorie numbers. You can order today, get that raspberry or mint brownie, whatever you like. Just go to their website, go to builtbar.com, use our promo code that's LOCKED15, all one word, LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your first order. Again, that promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at builtbar.com.
Also want to remind you, it's that time of year again. All eyes turn to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the season. Hope everyone got in on a little bit of Syracuse pick'em action that Tim and I handed out on the last show. And as always, BetOnline, your number one spot for all the pro and college action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Be sure to also take advantage of their opening day super promo. Make a bet on Thursday, September 9th, season opener between the Bucs and the Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up and using the promo code NFL100. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, from football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait and take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season. And use our promo code Locked On, and you will get a 100% welcome bonus when you sign up. That's promo code Locked On for a 100% welcome bonus when you sign up. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
There was even some weird BetOnline movement on Saturday morning. You tweeted this out, but it got to like 2.5, right? At one point, Ohio
was
favorites.
all over the place. Yeah, so I think Syracuse got as high as a 1.5-point favorite Friday night, and then it completely swung the other way to an Ohio minus 2.5, which I don't know if it was, which is strange because there were 2 big injuries that flared up in this game right before kickoff. It was Chris Elmore on the Syracuse side and Isaiah Cox on the other side for Ohio. And I tweeted this out too from our account. If I'm Syracuse, I take that trade right there and run to the bank with it.
Right. And because he's one of the better wide receivers on paper.
Oh, yeah. He was their best returning receiver from a year ago. So I think you run to the bank with it. I didn't understand the line movement. Maybe it was triggered by where the money was flowing in. I don't know. But Syracuse, I think, looked like a class ahead of Ohio in this one.
No doubt. And speaking of injuries, we should note Garrett Williams left this game. And we're going to talk about Duce Chestnut now. We've delayed this too long. Duce Chestnut was too good, and apologize to him and his family for waiting this long. 24
and
minutes
all the
to talk about it.
Syracuse Duce Chestnut fans. I mean, this kid's got a lot of fans now. he made a few runs Saturday night.
But also Kingsley Jonathan left the game. The good news about Garrett Williams, seems like it was just cramps, so hopefully he's all good. He said it should be handled by next week, I think was his quote to Stephen Bailey. Kingsley Jonathan left the game. We'll see about him. Didn't see Bear in this game, so I'm hoping that at least one of them returns for Rutgers. And then, you know this earlier, Chris Elmore probably out multiple weeks, I think, per Stephen Bailey, probably like 2 or 3 more weeks, it seems like maybe. So that's kind of a bummer. But I mean, we got Duce Chestnut. That's the good news. How good was he in that first game? I mean, even right from the jump, I think he made kind of a weak tackle his first play out that Dino talked about. But then he was wrapping people up. He was hitting people hard. He was making big plays, that fourth down pass breakup where, honestly, I just figured the guy caught it. Then Deuce comes out of the pack dancing, celebrating. It was awesome to see how good he was for his first game as a true freshman.
He was breaking up passes. He was making tackles. I mean, the way that he flew around and made tackles, you could not get past Duce Chestnut. And if you did, he held you up long enough where there was a gang of 2 or 3 other Syracuse players to bring you down shortly after. There was, again, we talked about this on the show, the preview show. Syracuse needs to learn to tackle, all right? Because there is a lot of players who missed a lot of tackles last year, especially in the secondary. And it feels like Duce Chestnut just solidified a lot of problems for this team. Now, you still want to see your safeties step up, your linebackers step up and not miss as many tackles. But when you've got Duce Chestnut making those sort of plays on the perimeter, when it felt like they were trying to get to the edge and rush against Syracuse, oh boy. I mean, there's something special here with Deuce. And I don't want to overreact because it was Ohio. And Ohio, I think we learned, is not a good football team, is what we learned. They're not well coached. They are not well executing, all of that stuff. They're not good. But Duce Chestnut still, for a true freshman, while he was being picked on all game long, made a statement that you cannot pick on me or I will make you pay, whether it's pass breakups, tackling. The interception that he had with the one-handed pick, he was a stud in this game. And I think a lot of the ACC started to take notice. And I think Aaron Murray even pointed this out too on the broadcast where he said, people are picking on Duce Chestnut because Garrett Williams is supposed to be the stud on the other side. We might see those roles reverse at some point in the season, and Garrett Williams might be the one that's picked on.
Which is amazing because Garrett Williams is that dude. He's really good as well. So that's really exciting. I mean, it's just another great defensive back recruit, defensive back guy to be grooming. And I think it only helps them to continue this lineage that they've had of really strong defensive backs. The interception, it's funny because at first I didn't realize it was one-handed when he caught it. And then he his momentum carried him all the way to the end of the end zone. And I was like, all right, just take a knee. And he ran it out.
I don't know if he could have taken a knee.
Well, that's true. Because, he may have caught it before. You might
I think he caught it like a couple yards before too, and he knew that. And that's called awareness because
he's better than me.
That he was catching that at like the 3-yard line, I think is where he made the catch. I don't know if there's a rule saying that. Maybe there's a rule that says if the momentum carries you into the end zone, you can take the knee. But I think he kind of knew, okay, I might have to take this out. And he ended up getting to the 25. He bought himself 5 yards or so there. So, I mean, the awareness that he had, the poise, he was not afraid of any sort of moment. He was not afraid of any sort of competition. He was really solid in one-on-ones. He was fantastic in zones. He was like as good as he was in the one-on-ones. He was that much better in zone coverage. I think he ended up with a 90 zone grade coverage-wise from PFF. So he was that dude. He deserved all the praise and accolades. But again, just like I've been saying with the rest of the Syracuse team, you beat up on a bad team. You've got a much better Rutgers team coming into your house next week.
Yeah.
I need to see it again. It's great that you beat up on a bad Ohio team, but I need to see it again.
Right. I was just impressed with his tackling more than anything. I knew he was a playmaker in terms of his interceptions, pass breakups, that stuff. He was great in run-stopping coverage. A couple other quick notes here before we get out of here. I guess we can kind of go rapid fire here. Not a single sack from the D. Does that concern you at all?
No, because I went back and I looked at it. A lot of short things for the quarterback. A lot of running plays too for Ohio. You knew they were going to be a run-heavy team. I wasn't as concerned with that. But I mean, hey, when you've got guys making plays like Duce Chestnut and holding their own, I mean, Deuce made like 5 WTF plays. And when we talk about this defense from a year ago, WTF are bad plays. He made 5 WTF really good plays. And it's nice to see the shift in the way that you talk about Syracuse. I think another part of it too was the defense was not as tired. as well in this game. We saw so many times last year where the defense was just absolutely gassed once it got to the fourth quarter. That was not the case in this game. Not one bit.
Right. And then last thing from me, I just want to shout out James Williams because that might get overlooked a little bit, but a very strong first game from him. Dino said you never know what you're going to expect from a freshman punter. He pinned them inside the 10 a couple times. I think his first punt was inside the 5. 4. Yeah. I mean, that's punter U and DBU, just picking up right where we left off, I guess.
I've got another special team star I want to shout out as well. Trevor Pena. I mean, talk about the hidden yard battle. He had a couple of really good returns, a couple of smart returns. He was gaining yardage. Listen, a lot of these games are won in the hidden yardage. And for those who don't know, it's the yards you pick up on special teams. It's the yards you pick up on interceptions, all that stuff that doesn't necessarily show up in the stat sheet. I thought Trevor Pena was fantastic, and I want to shout him out again, but Max Mang. I mean, those are my two hidden stars of this game. They did so many good things that helped control the field position battle, that helped out in the run game. They really, you cannot lose what those two did in this game because Syracuse does not have nearly the amount of success without what they did.
All right, well, that is going to do it for our Monday wrap-up podcast. Tomorrow on the show, Tyler kind of hinted at it, but he was deep in the film room reviewing Tommy DeVito, so we're kind of going to do a film room recap, anything we missed, some leftover thoughts from this for our
Aaron
Tuesday
Murray
podcast.
Quote I want to break down. Did you hear what Aaron Murray said at the end of the game too? I'm showing so much love to Aaron Murray on this.
Yeah, really.
He's working with our buddy Noah Eagle this season. He'll be working with CBS Sports. So Noah Eagle, one of our good friends. But Aaron Murray at the end of the game said, "This is a bowl team in my mind. They're at least 6-6." I don't know if your thoughts have changed, but we can get into that tomorrow as well.
That's a tease there, folks. That's well done from you. All right, well, that will wrap up the Monday pod. Subscribe now because we're here all football season, and it looks like it's going to be a better football season than last year. Knock on wood through one game.
It already is.
So
it already is.
Yeah, I mean, it's already matched it, as you said. So we've got Rutgers this week. We'll preview Rutgers, break down everything you need to know about them. That's all coming up this week on the podcast. But thanks for listening, as always. Follow the show on Twitter at @LO_Syracuse. Find us on YouTube and subscribe there. That will mean a lot to us as well. And we will talk to you guys with a full breakdown of the film, dive into that Aaron Murray quote, and more on our Tuesday podcast tomorrow.